real-world mythology, real-world legends, and even just places and technology that's in the real world.
Like things being able to kill African elephants.
Right, that would be Ghastly, able to smother an African elephant just by enveloping it. And he's not that big. Ghastly's less than a pound.
Big. It's 0.02 pounds,
Yeah.
but a healthy 5'7".
Yeah, it's nice. He can fill a room. When he goes to a party, he works his way around the room.
It's a gas.
All at once.
That's how gases work.
Indeed. And then of course you also have things like Arcanine, which say that in Chinese legend, it says it's in the Pokédex, specific reference to China, which Arcanine is called the legendary Pokemon.
Yeah, it's a legendary Pokemon, the value that it's called legendary.
Yes. And interestingly enough, Arcanine was planned to be one of the legendary Pokemon alongside Zapdos and Articuno, but they changed it at the last minute, which is why they left the species name legendary, and they changed it to Moltres. So if they had left it alone, Arcanine would have been a legit legendary Pokemon, just, waffling, and they probably just didn't like Arcanine. I really like Arcanine.
Now that we're oversaturated with legendary dog/cat/German fire beast.
Verbals. Patra. That is all.
I was actually referring to Entei.
Oh, Entei. Oh. Those guys.
Is that what we do with the argument whether or not they're dogs or cats?
So, in first gen, there's a few man-made Pokemon. You have Porygon, which I'm sure you guys know. He's made a program data. And actually it says in the Pokedex that he cannot be replicated. Like, you can't copy his data to Abyss, take it somewhere else, and get other Pokemon, which is cool, because with the subsequent upgrades they made to him, which were probably done by Team Rocket since when Porygon was released, Team Rocket wasn't controlled so soon.
Sylph actually had, the first upgrade was done by Sylph.
And then the subsequent, well, I know the dubious disc was live.
Yeah. Let's be fair.
It's the dubious disc. And I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but the upgrades that they made to Porygon were an effort to try to make it run smoother. Because when it gets to Porygon 2, it's like nice, it's like the smoother, nicer, cool looking ducky thing. And then they're like, okay, we need this thing to work in space. They wanted Porygon 2 to work in space. And Porygon 2 can live in space because it doesn't need to breathe or eat food. And it will eat. It will eat food if you give it food, but it doesn't eat food. And they're like, how are we going to need it? How can we get it to work in space? So they upgraded it with the dubious disc, which was not sanctioned by Silphco. That was Team Rocket. And when they did that, it can function in space, and it's actually really, really great in the game, too. It has great special attack. But it acts really weird, and it glitches around, and none of that was intended to be programmed into Porygon Z.
It's very broken.
Yes.
It's very, very
Very, very broken. And of course, the other man-made Pokemon is Mewtwo.
Yeah.
Which?
We all kind of know how Mewtwo works. Created by mostly scientists that were hired by Team Rocket to make things.
Which you guys might remember Blaine.
Depending on the story that you were reading, it was either just completely made from Mew's DNA that was spliced incredibly terribly over time, damaged, recombined, and to the point of just being nonsense. Or they didn't have enough of Mew's DNA to do it, so they put in some Blaine's DNA, and that's why Mewtwo is insane.
And if you all read the Pokemon manga, from Blaine's DNA being mixed with Mewtwo, he and Mewtwo had a psychic link. And Blaine actually was Mewtwo's, I guess, partner for a long time in the anime because they were far away from each other, or if one was feeling pain, then the other would feel pain.
Technically, Blaine did catch Mewtwo.
Yeah, which is cool. And then Entei ended up curing that psychic link using his flame. But you guys should read the Pokemon manga because it's really good. Another interesting thing about Mewtwo is that in one Pokedex entry it says that he was from a pregnant Mew.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because, as you all know, Pokemon come from eggs. So if Mew was pregnant, it raises a question as to, like, okay, did it have egg in there, or was it just natural born, stillborn?
Okay. The rules really different because they didn't have eggs, so they had to figure out how exactly Pokemon were progenited. So you ended up with something like, occasionally they had live births, rather than everything being done through eggs. But that would also imply that the scientists who were behind the Mewtwo project had access to a Mew. Which, if you have a Mew, what's the point of being a Mew?
They just wanted to make a powerful Pokemon.
And they did.
They did.
And as I believe it said at the beginning of the first movie, they succeeded too well.
And he killed everyone.
Yeah.
The storm that he caused during the first movie, actually, in the American version of the movie, they changed it, because in the English version, the storm was strong enough it was going to destroy the world.
Yeah.
And then in the English version, it wasn't as powerful, but he was still able to hold back the abilities of Pokemon. But I like the version where he was just out to destroy the world because he was having a bad day. I enjoyed that.
That's pretty much how Mewtwo runs.
Yeah. Other man-made Pokemon. KC4.
KC4, that's, yeah.
Made by the Weather Institute.
Because they wanted to see what weather could do.
Yeah, they just were like, we need some way to predict the weather, and we want to see what happens when we mess around with this. And they were smart enough to learn from the Mewtwo incident not to give him all power. So, KC4...
They also weren't working with as powerful material.
True. But as far as predicting the weather goes, KC4 is actually based off of Japanese lore. I think it's called the Terateri Bozu. And it was used so that if you hung it up inside and you hung it right side up, no rain. This is great. If you hang it upside down, rain's going to come. And that was kind of the way they work as, farmers. They need the rain for the crops. And, if you hung it right side up and you got rain anyway, you get a little bit of return there, because if you get rain anyway, you get to cut off the territory of Lucy's head. And if you don't get rain, give it sake. So he gets something, you get something, and if he fails, you cut off his head. I don't think you would actually cut off the head of a castle.
Murder the ghost, or you get it drunk.
Yeah, or you get it drunk. So that's those are some of the man-made.
Oh yeah.
Gen 2 legendary.
Gen 2, that gives us, we didn't remember Garages.
Oh, we did not. Zapdos, Moltres, Articuno.
Okay.
Yeah.
Zapdos is usually parallel to a Thunderbird. Moltres is kind of just a proto-Phoenix chicken thing. Yeah.
Which that's in a lot of different types of legends.
Everywhere has a Phoenix.
Yeah.
You just have to look for them. They're in every culture.
And Articuno is based off of Rock.
Yeah.
Which, all those are really big birds. So, when the Mirage Pokemon and hard to find, though a lot of those birds have wingspans big enough to block out the sun in their lore. So
they're called mirages because they usually appear to people who are in bad situations. Like Articuno, kind of appearing as you're going to die in this mountain situation. And I'm not sure exactly the parameters of Zapdos and Moltres appearing, but it's probably pretty similar.
Yeah, it's like a pure heart. A lot of legendary Pokemon do that. They'll appear if you have a pure heart. And a lot of, especially the nicer ones, like Shaman, Jirachi, those guys they'll be around, but they like you better if you're a nice person. So be a nice person, you have a chance of getting those guys to appear. And I mean Jirachi, Millennium Comet, you can get a wish, because Jirachi absorbs the energy from the Millennium Comet, and then every 1,000 years it has an eye on its stomach instead of a belly button. I prefer a belly button to an eye on the stomach, because if someone punches you in the stomach, they're hitting you in the eye. This is a weird thing. But anyways, you can make a wish, and in the anime, they use that for bad purposes.
Yeah, I mean, let's be fair. Half the people who are listening to this probably would use the wish for a bad purpose.
Would you use the wish for a bad purpose?
Free omnipotent wish.
World domination.
There you go.
That's a good wish.
Is it? That's a good wish. Depends on who's dominating. You have a Jirachi. It don't matter.
True.
That's the ring race.
Other than
How about the Rajas,
Lugia. Oh, Lugia and Ho for that matter. Lugia is also based on the Leviathan.
A little bit.
Not as much as Kyo.
No. The Leviathan is a giant water beast. Lugia is kind of a psychic dragon.
But the illusion is there because it sleeps at the bottom of the sea.
Yeah.
And Ho-Oh, again, that Phoenix reference, which is kind of cool. I know you all probably played through Heart Gold Soul Silver. We should probably just run through the legend in the game, I guess.
Yeah.
But, so, true, because it was reborn.
From ashes.
From ashes. And that's what Phoenixes do. But, Burn Tower, so you have, Ho was the one residing in the Burn Tower before it was the Burn Tower. It was just the Bell Tower. And at that point, when it was going to burn down, the three legendary dogs appeared and they were helping people out.
There were three beasts. They weren't the legendary dogs. They were just three beasts that were in the tower. And then the tower burned down. They were trying to get people in Pokemon out of the tower, but they couldn't get out themselves. So they kind of got burned a lot. Yeah, it would. It would be really, really suck if you spend your time saving everyone's life and then you die. But then Ho-Oh came, and raise them from the fire, the ashes. Because Uno can do that.
You can do whatever you want.
Again, paralleling the sacred ashes item, it lets you resurrect all of your Pokemon in battle.
Which is pretty broken.
Yeah.
And
that's why it's banned in our tournament.
Yes. End of the tournament. If you all are thinking about entering the tournament, you should. $5 entry, and we have rules up here. But a little bit more information about the legendary dogs. Just their special abilities. Entei, every time a volcano erupts, an Entei is born. So, in my head, there's just the volcano that's continuously erupting, and Entei are coming out like a little factory. It's kind of intriguing. Yeah, just like that's the polar molten lava. Suicune is more based on the north wind.
Yeah.
And it can actually run on water and purify water. And it's not the only legendary Pokemon that can run on water.
It's also known as the purify water.
It's true. And Raikou is based on thunderstorms in general.
More or less.
But the little plume on its back is like a little miniature thundercloud, so it could just be eating whatever and a thunderstorm can go off.
It is made of thunder.
Which is cool. In the manga, almost Pokemon can practically, it's just like in the game, if you try to fly to get to where they are, you're just going to teleport somewhere else. And in the manga, Raikou can move around via lightning.
Yeah, so they're all super fast Pokemon. So it is consistent with them, they run away. They were the first roaming Pokemon.
It's true too. And that was a pain in the butt. Because even if you say it,
and then there's the other legendary Pokemon, second name,
which is Celebi.
Nintendo doesn't like Celebi.
No.
They try to hide Celebi. They've been working really hard on hiding Celebi for the last decade.
And then even when you found out about Celebi, it literally has the most weaknesses a single Pokemon can have in the game. Shared only with Executor. So that's just 2 slaps in the face, one with the front hand, one with the back hand. So,
but of all the Pokemon, it's probably one of the more powerful ones, just lore-wise.
It is. Travel through time.
Yeah, it can control. It can control and travel through time, which that's a dangerous power in the wrong hands. Fortunately, Celebi tends to be a benevolent Pokemon.
Once again, appearing to you guys if you have a kind heart. So,
yeah.
Work on that resume, kind heart on the resume.
Yeah.
Get that going.
It won't get you a job, but it'll make a Celebi.
Yeah. And then that's the job of this.
And then the entire thing behind it, it appears at the shrine in Eclipse Forest. If you leave an offering for it. And that is the guardian of the forest. And people have been leaving offerings for it for past generations upon generations. And it shows up there occasionally popping off.
It has spiky ears because they've been hanging out in the time space for them too long.
That's what time vortex does too.
Just your ear. Just one ear. Which, if that's what I get from traveling through time like on the DeLorean, I don't mind. I will take a spiky ear. Unless you park in the wrong way, then you can't get out. But Doctor Who references aside. Third gen.
That's when you had a lot of legendaries.
Yes. And if you haven't noticed, Nintendo has been increasing the amount of legendaries per version, or per generation rather, every single generation.
Well, they were doing good in first gen. They had 5, and then they went to 6.
Yeah. And then they had this huge leap.
Let's see. The golems.
Right, that's 3.
The late Pokemon. The Super Ancient Pokemon. And then
6.
2 Space Pokemon.
I'm running out of people.
Yeah, a lot of legendaries on the mission. Start with the golems.
All right.
Let's actually finish with the golems. I don't need to do yeah. Super Ancient Pokemon.
So the Super Ancient Pokemon, that's going to be Kyogre and Rayquaza, and it's going to be Groudon. And they're all based off of a ton of different lore because Leviathan, Kyogre, the Behemoth, Groudon, and Ziz are all in a lot of different legends.
They are, there's a lot of actually Jewish history references in this generation, because between the Super Ancient Pokemon being references to the Leviathan and Behemoth, both of which are referenced in the Bible. You have to find them, I don't know the works like that. And Leviathan was a giant sea monster, often kind of paralleled with the Loch Ness monster, but it's a giant sea monster that could withstand arrows and pretty much any assault, which explains why Kyogre is hilariously bulky.
Very much so.
And then Kyogre controls the rain. Groudon is paralleled with Behemoth. It's a giant land creature. Usually presented like as a buffalo kind of thing, actually. But
A number of large quadrupeds.
yeah, it's a big land creature. And then Groudon's parallel so strongly with the land, producing arable land wherever it's at. And volcanoes, oddly.
Which means Inte.
Yes. And then Z's is usually kind of like a griffin creature, which is kind of weird, which is why it was weird that Rayquaza is parallel with Z's. Both of them do have the air aspect.
He's blocking out the sun with his wings, and Rayquaza just blocking out all air. And I know Rayquaza. And as far as that trio goes, if you all played Emerald version, you'll see that Rayquaza is often the one that comes in and calms the fight between the two, because just like you said in the lore, Behemoth and Leviathan are often the ones fighting. And I don't know if Ziz actually calms anything between them, but he's seen as kind of a mediator.
Yeah.
So you see that illusion there as well, which is kind of interesting.
Well, all the trios have at least an internal or external, which, I mean, first gen you have the Mirages, the leaders usually represent the Gia, the legendary beasts, which usually Ho-Oh is their leader, and then the, let's see, next is the Golems with Regigigas, and then down the Super Ancient for Rayquaza, trio, and then, let's see, Latios and Latios, they're basically just jet planes as Pokemon.
Yeah,
like
they
that's
just tuck it in and go.
That's really
that is what the Pokemon says. If Latios tucks in his wings, it can fly faster than most jet planes. So, and they can also turn invisible. So an invisible jet plane, that doesn't seem like a problem at all for them.
There are a lot of Pokemon that are jets. Yeah. Blaziken was kind of one. Blaziken and Latios are almost the same Pokemon.
That would have been great. You guys can go look up a lot of fan art of those two Pokemon combined. It's pretty good.
And then Garchomp is also
Landshark.
Yeah, it has rockets on its head.
That's where I open my rockets.
Yeah. But that's really all there is to those. They're basically stealth fighters, which makes sense because if you're ever hit by a Draco Meteor,
you're dead. Unless you're a steel type. That's the only way.
You'll still die.
Well, yeah, sure. Just by sheer fighting power. So other legendaries in third gen. We did Golems. Oh. So Golems bring because you have Regirock, who is said to be built from rocks that aren't of this world, so he has illusions to him being an alien, or at least being made up of like alien pieces, which could be meteorites that fell onto the Earth. Then you have Regice, who has illusions to Antarctica and the Pokedex.
It's also never met ice.
Its body temperature is like negative 400 degrees Celsius. So no matter how hot you get it, yeah, you can't melt that. You can knock it out. You might even be able to break it, but you can't melt it.
Yeah.
So.
And then Registeel is
very hard.
More, I would probably parallel to making adamantium.
Ooh, I like adamantium.
But
I like adamantium.
The golems are constructs. They're mostly lore-wise, they're based off Jewish golems, which I don't feel like explaining all of them than that. But I'm gonna go with one I prefer. D&D constructs, which can be made of just about anything. You can have a construct made of pretty much any kind of material, as long as you have enough of it you can afford it. Regirock, Regice, and Registeel are all constructs. One rock, one ice, and one metal. And constructs work by you craft them, and whoever crafts them kind of controls them to an extent.
And here the craftsman was Regigigas, which again is the ruler of the North.
There will be another.
And then, let's see. If you want a literary parallel, Frankenstein's monster is also qualified as a monster. But that's kind of relevant. Anyway, Space Pokemon.
Space Pokemon. So there are a lot of Pokemon from outer space. For you guys who played Black and White, the most relevant one that you guys have probably seen is Kyurem, who the residents of Loch Ness Town don't even want to go outside because they have all these legends that Kyurem will come out and eat them and their Pokemon at night. And of course, he fell on the meteor. He fell from a meteor, and made the giant castle. And that's interesting that he is from outer space himself, because other Pokemon that appear in that area include Clefairy and Clefable, who are also probably from outer space. And yeah, they evolved from the Moonstone actually, by the Moonstone. And then you also have Solrock and Lunatone appearing in a cave very close to Kyurem, which they are the meteorite Pokemon. That's their species name, and it's very likely that they're from outer space as well.
And then Algium and Arcanine, there's a reason that they're covered with their body.
hereby. LVM and LVM are references to the Roswell incident in New Mexico. Several years ago, and in the Pokédex it says that they appeared suddenly in the desert 50 years ago, which if you're trying to parallel it to actual real time of the Roswell incident, or at least when the Roswell incident became popularized by the National Enquirer, don't we all love the National Enquirer? It's a little bit out of place there, but it's in between the 2 days. So if you're trying to look into that, and they probably moved from the desert. Because the LGMs, which is the first form, it's if you listen to the name LGM, little green men, it's like a little allusion to grays, which are a common way that aliens are portrayed. So those guys moved to the Celestial Tower, which is one of the higher points in the universe. And the Vihians moved to a route near the White Forest or the Black City. So they kind of just left the desert, probably because all the dark types that showed up, I'd imagine, or even just because of the relentless sandstorm that takes place in the desert.
To be fair, Aurora is not a place you
No. But both of those Pokemon have a lot of the abilities. Vihian can actually erase and rewrite your memory as a sea spit. So don't piss it off, because you won't remember pissing it off. So just do whatever it wants with your brain. And LGM has the ability to squeeze your brain, just your brain. So it can give you a headache or it can kill you. And both of them communicate by using the little lights on their hands. And they have different color lights depending on if they're shiny or not. But that goes back to light signals and a lot of the ways people constantly try to contact aliens in the real world.
Usually, alien presence are identified by lights in the sky. That's what most unidentified flying objects are identified by. Lights. Finishing up Lurgin, though, we already kind of talked about Jirachi. If anyone wants to hear more about that, we could keep going on about wishing destruction. Doom desires. And also, Deoxys.
Deoxys, yet another alien Pokemon. And
Space virus.
It depends on, it may not have been a Pokemon before it arrived on Earth. Again, it arrived on Earth via meteor. But once it got here, scientists got hold of the meteor and exposed it to a laser. And from the virus being exposed to that laser, it became Deoxys.
So we irradiated the space virus and made it stronger.
Yes, because that's what you do. I don't know what else you would do with a space virus.
I catch Pokemon and have them gain double effort value.
We don't do
That's
that.
what Pokemon is.
That is what Pokemon is. It'd be interesting if that's what Pokemon is.
It might be.
That'd be really cool. But Deoxys actually has, it's adapted to life on Earth pretty well. And just through its ability to change its cellular structure to be more offensive, defensive, or just to run the heck away if it needs to. Because Speed Deoxys has the highest attack of all Pokemon. It has the highest special attack of all Pokemon, tied with a few, I think.
It has no defense.
And it has no HP. It has like base 50 HP, which is
30 is in defense.
yeah, which barely gets you above 200.
Yeah.
Level 100. So he can't really take a hit, but he can dish out one really, really easily. And it's interesting that he's based off of a space virus because he has the ability to recover and regenerate his body if he's been hit. Those we almost saw the movie. Deoxys was hit like point blank range with a Rayquaza hyper movie. And it took like 10 years for it to regenerate, but it came back and it was completely blown away down to like the sun, as long as the core cells are in place. But viruses don't replicate that way. So it being a space virus, it's interesting that it has the ability to recover.
Technically alive.
No, they're not. But Deoxys is quite alive. And that's probably because of the exposure to the laser.
Oh my god. The Deoxys appears in the Fire Red Lethal Field. And it's going to destroy the planet until they fight it with Mewtwo. If you ever want to see Deoxys get beat up with a spoon, there's your chance. But in the manga, it's actually able to recombine and change forms at will. So mid-fight, it will switch from defensive form to take a hit, and then switch to attack form to deal one back to Mewtwo. Needless to say, this was a difficult fight for Mewtwo.
Mewtwo's strong, so that's saying something. Of course, in the game, Deoxys can't change form unless it's exposed to radiation from meteor rounds. And it was originally it couldn't change form unless you played it on certain versions. So the speed form wasn't even available until Emerald came out. It would only be an attack form for Fire Red and defense form for Leaf Green. And then normal form. Yeah. So, yeah, because you can't just revert back after you change it. So, and while we're talking about alien Pokemon, I mentioned Clefairy before. And then back to the light illusion, Staryu and Starmie will actually, at at nighttime, they'll gather on the top of the sea and flash lights up at the stars. And so not only do you have their star shape, which may be a cosmic thing, they can also have cosmic power. And Starmie actually also emit radio waves into outer space. So those are all methods that people have used in real life to try to get some type of communication out there. And of course, the way sound and light travel, it could be years before they receive a response. And when we see a twinkling star, that could be someone responding to Starmie for all we know. And then you also have Igglybuff and Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff, who also evolved via Moonstone. But interestingly enough, they also show up on the full moon, and they also appear around meteor craters. And you have that showing up in Pokémon and Meteor Falls. They also show up there with the fairy, Mount Moon, of course. And they actually have like little, well, that's the fairy that has the moon ceremonies, where they, and Clefairy are actually really, really intelligent, which is interesting. Because not only are they intelligent enough to recognize the moon cycles and that type of thing, but in the anime you can see them building spaceships, planes, just constructs trying to get back out into outer space. And you have Jigglypuff going up to the lower.
Probably argue that most Pokemon evolved by exposure to the moon's technology, at least connected to the moon.
There are that video.
I mean, it's the Nidoran family, Jigglypuff family, the Fairy family, the Skinny family, and
yeah, there's a bunch of them, but not that many. 4th Gen. Are y'all still with us? We're moving into 4th Gen. And I know 4th Gen is where a lot of current players of Pokemon got back into this. 4th Gen brought a lot of changes to Pokemon. Like, a lot of legendaries, a lot of changes mechanically. So for legendaries, of course, you guys have the Title 1, Dialga and Palkia. And then you have Giratina in between them. You have the Lake Trio, which each of those guys was created by Arceus, who controls the guys who are controlling space-time and the in-between. And they control willpower, emotion, and knowledge. And then you also have Cresselia and Darkrai, which is basically good dreams and bad dreams, essentially. And you also have Shaman, and I'm missing one.
Manatee.
Heatran and some, yeah. Which there are multiple Heatran, but he's really hard to find, so we'll kind of
and Arceus.
And Arceus. Which, if you all have accounts through the Pokemon Global Link, make sure you go download your Arceus. It'll be there till March 1st. You get a free Arceus. You can befriend the god of Pokemon. So that's something to do. And it's kind of weird to see Arceus happy about it. To start off with Dialga and Palkia, of course, Dialga controls time, and Palkia controls space. And normally those two reside in different dimensions. They don't ever really emerge unless someone's trying to mess with time and space. And I don't know how you guys, if you all know this or not, but it's fairly difficult for us to mess with time and space. So they don't normally interact with our world too much. You do, and that would be a good reason for them to come out. In the movie, they started fighting because their dimensions accidentally overlapped, and they each thought each other was going to invoke on the other's property. So they started fighting, and if those two who are the controllers of time and space start fighting, that kind of messes with our time and space. That's a little bit of an issue there. And then Giratina kind of resides in the distortion world, which is the in-between.
It's hell.
Yes, basically,
it's Pokemon hell.
And everything there is all topsy-turvy. And Giratina, while it's in the distortion world, can retain its origin form, which is much more offensively based than the regular form. And it looks a lot more like a Centipede. It's kind of cool. But which is really cool. I like the way it looks. I'm happy they introduced it. But if Giratina enters the real world, or not the real world, but our world rather, then it will revert back to the alternate form unless it's holding its specific world, like Arceus. But those three are often governed by Arceus, who only really appears to save the world. Otherwise, he's just going to chill. And the only way you can actually, humans can get to him is through the Spear Pillar, which you go up the Skull Pillar and you play the Azure Flute, and it brings out Arceus. The Azure Flute was never, it brings downstairs and allow you to go up there, but the Azure Flute was never released to US cartridges. So most people don't even know that that's in the game. If you Game Shark it, it has a really cool, number one, they have all the images that flash, which are real world events and real world places, like it shows the Twin Towers, it shows Mount Everest in there, and it's all showing on the Game Boy screen. And Arceus appears and you have to battle him, so it's something like that.
He's the highest wild Pokemon encounter ever presented in the game, until they released the remodeled version of Arceus, which you catch at all the But
that, again, those are more allusions to the real world with those actual places being in the game. And again, you see references to Pokemon eggs and where Pokemon come from, because in Diamond and Pearl, you can get Arceus to give you a level 1 version of Dialga, Palkia, or Arceus. Or Giratina, excuse me. And it'll be in a massive egg. So massive egg holding a Pokemon that can control time space.
And Arceus is the third on both trios. The Space-Time and both Space-Time and Void trio, and then the Link trio. How the lore presents it is Arceus created reality, created space and time, and then Giratina Void, and then created the Link Pokemon to restrain them. Which was done through the original convention.
And that's the item that Team Galactic has in the game. Yeah, that they're trying to control the Pokemon. But that's why the item's in there. Because that's the same item that was used to restrain. And then the Lake trio, so you have Zelf, Mesprit, and Uxie. Each of them are also beings over. Zelf is the being of willpower. Mesprit is the being of emotions, and Uxie is the being of knowledge. And each of them, not only are they're to restrain Dialga and Palkia and Giratina, but they also provided each of those things to humans and Pokemon. So, assuming which is, I guess we should say a thank you to each of the Link trio, because otherwise they just couldn't have given us any knowledge, so we'd just be derping around, which I don't know how that would turn out. But also, they each have their own abilities. All you should do. Watch the beginning of 2001. So Uxie, that's the yellow one. It has its eyes closed. If it opens its eyes, it can destroy your memory, and it can make you forget everything that you've ever known.
Retrograde and Terrograde.
I think that's...
It doesn't have control over that ability. It just does it. So that's why its eyes are always closed. Otherwise, everything will always be forgetting its memory and its entire existence.
It does have that ability. It has to be supremely angry at you. And then it can...
I hope so.
Basically just destroys your brain.
I hope it can control it. Otherwise, if it's winking at you, it's going to destroy your brain.
Intimidating, just enough to keep your
As following that, controlling willpower. If it stares at you, you basically just die immediately. Because it destroys your ability to...
Just want to live.
Yeah.
Just go, I'm dead.
Again, referencing D&D, I know that if your wisdom score is 0, you're locked in basically mental prison, suffering from the worst possible nightmares until the end of time. So, just imagine that's probably what happens to you if you get stared at by an asshole.
And Mesprit, the one that actually you have to run around and catch, is always and Diamond and Pearl, that's the one that controls emotions, and it can literally just make you feel whatever it wants you to feel.
Or nothing at all.
Exactly. You can cut both ways. Those are all psychic Pokemon, so the fact that they have those abilities is good, because once you catch them, then it's like, okay, good. I don't think they're going to use it on me.
And then they explode.
The Zelf explodes really well. Really, really well. It's like this explosion.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last few that we have been fortunate are Sully and Darkrai.
Sully and Darkrai. Good and bad dreams. Duh.
That's all you need.
They live on New Moon and Full Moon Island. I think Darkrai's New Moon, Crescent is. They also represent the fans of the story behind Darkrai, actually, is that you go to the in-game event they will never release. You really pass to a free hotel in one of the cities.
That's not shady.
Canalave, I think. You go to the hotel, you stay there, you go in, someone greets you at the door, like, oh, I heard you had a reservation. They lead you to a bed, you go to sleep, and then you're on New Moon Island. You walk into a cave, you battle and or catch Darkrai, and then you wake up suddenly. It's been weeks, and the guy who's running the hotel is nowhere to be found. Basically, you were trapped in your own mind battling Darkrai and catching him.
It's kind of awesome.
And that event will never be released. Pulling back to third gen temporarily, Regigigas is the leader of the Golden Tree.
And then she burnt my sizzle, which just
And
sucks.
what's this? Okay, it's the lore behind it is it what pulled the continents apart. So it's continental rift basically. It is the Pokemonification of a geological process that causes the continental plates to shift away from each other.
Which basically what we're saying.
Of course, you could just chain continents to each other.
Exactly. And Regigigas has been asleep, which is odd because Regigigas is one of the few Pokemon that can't learn rest. Because he's been asleep for a long time and subsequently slow start.
Yeah, well, he has to wake up.
He has to get it going. He has to, get some coffee, get some breakfast going, wake up. But that was shown in the anime almost directly because Regigigas was trying to push back an iceberg by itself. Couldn't do it even with the help of Mamoswine. But after its slow start kicked in, it just palmed the iceberg and pushed it back. So it definitely is capable of pulling the continents around, basically.
The problem is, though, slow start makes it almost completely non-compliant. Which is unfortunate, because that thing would be amazing to do.
Much like Slacking.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, Slacking and Regigigas have the highest attack of all normal types. But they both have abilities that make them difficult to play. Slacking's ability, of course, makes it low for around every other turn.
Just one Giga attack all the time.
This is true.
Nothing but Giga attack.
And everything dies. And most fully evolved Pokemon can do that. So that's really easy to run on everything.
Shifting back to Cresselia, I believe there is an event in game where someone is a little kid is being plagued by Darkrai, and you have to go and get a feather from Cresselia to heal him from the bad dreams.
Lunar Wing.
Yeah, so the two Pokemon are, again, constantly in battle.
You have to run around and catch Cresselia too.
Yeah.
The only other...
See, Shaman.
Which, Shaman looks kind of like a hedgehog, doesn't it?
It is a hedgehog, actually. And it turns into a dog.
It turns into a dog for no real reason other than exposure to the Gracidia flower. Which rightfully so, being exposed to the Gracidia flower makes Shaman faster, has higher attack, and the only downside is that it just has less, it can't take hits as well. Which is interesting because if Shaman is ever frozen or if it becomes nighttime while it's in that form, it immediately reverts back to landform. It's landform and skyform. But in each of the games, they've done a good job of reusing the Gracidia flower.
Yeah.
Which you can also get in Black and White.
There you go. No Soldew.
No Soldew. And Soldew is Latias and Latios' item, which gives them a boost to their attack and their special attack and their special defense. That hasn't been released yet.
5th gen?
5th gen has so many legendaries.
Okay, Caltrio.
That's 3.
Okay.
Oh, we forgot one.
What did we forget?
Manaphy.
Okay. Well, Manaphy.
Manaphy.
It's a. What is Manaphy?
So it's the Prince of the Sea.
Oh, it's based off of. I think it's based off of a. Deep sea like. Protozoa thing.
Manaphy's body is essentially water.
Yeah, it's basically a protozoa.
And it's also interesting that it's based off of such a simple organism as Manaphy is the only Pokemon, only legendary really that can breed.
Well, yeah, because all it does is really just split off and put out a Fiona.
And that's why the Fiona is inferior to Manaphy, and it also can't evolve into Manaphy.
But it's really good at lower tiers.
It is. That hydration.
That's straight 80. Now we can.
Now we can. So we have the Musketeer Trio plus 1. Plus 1.
Tal Trio.
Plus 3. Oh yeah, let's look at the Pokedex from first gen. That should help us.
1 second. Looking at the Pokedex.
You can use the voice function.
Legendaries from 5th gen. I don't want to know it.
Genies.
Sorry, guys.
It's not very accurate.
We've forgotten legendaries.
Genies.
The genies.
So,
Oh, the gen. Right. Thank you. Whoever that was in the audience. Okay, we have Cobalion, Terrakion, Grizion, Tornadus, Thunderous, Reshiram, Zephyr, Landorus, Kuro, Keldeo, Meowlata, and Genesect.
which if you haven't heard of those last two, it's because they haven't been released yet. We already talked about Kyurem, so we're not going to cover that again.
Yeah.
I guess we can start
Well,
with
Kyurem, we have to talk about Kyurem then.
Oh, it was into the trio, yeah.
So we have Light and Dark, Good and Evil, personified in the Pokemon with Reshiram and Zekrom. And also masculinity and femininity, which is why that's why Zekrom looks more has more rigid lines in its design, and Reshiram is more fluid.
Weirdly enough, though, Reshiram sounds like a guy.
Yeah, well, this isn't really supposed to make sense. They don't have genders anyway. And then they all have light and dark, and you know everything associated with those things. And then Kyurem is the absence of both light and dark, which is
basically
nothingness.
Your yin, your yang, and your wuji.
Why we have a Pokemon that the sheer presence causes everything to freeze.
Yeah. And just another thing on Kyurem, it freezes because of the energy stored in its body. That energy is stored at temperatures below absolute zero, so if it ever takes a wound, if it gets a crack anywhere in its body is the only thing holding the energy in. So as soon as it's released out, it freezes everything. And you see that in its special moves, Glaciate.
Also, it has a lot of signature moves.
It does.
It has a set of signature moves. It only gets the nice thing that it is. Speaking of Kyurem, though, this is a little announcement. People who are doing data dumps found a table that implies that Kyurem will probably have no form in the next game. Because in 4th Gen, all the Pokemon that had we're going to have a full release of Platinum, which are Giratina and Shaman. We're given a 1 in this kind of table. And then when they release, their form number was increased to 2. Pokemon does not have forms, so it's just not listed on the table. It's given a 0 value. So a Pokemon that will have forms later is given a 1. They didn't know this until very recently. So since Kyurem has a 1, it's implied that when Pokemon Gray is released, it's going to have a value of 2 or 3, based upon what is given form-wise. Okay, that's your announcement for today.
I hope you all enjoyed that.
Oh wait,
Yes.
I don't think it's not getting into it.
I think it's good enough as well.
According to the table, Genesect is under and Meowth. Meowth already has 2 forms.
Genesect changes form based on the items.
Yeah, if they ever release those, I mean, they're listed as different forms. It's the fire form, grass form, water form, electric form, you get it. Yeah. I haven't played around with Genesect yet.
Genesect isn't released yet, so
It doesn't exist.
this is all projections, what we expect from this.
Let's see, the talent the Musketeers.
Right.
Based off of the Musketeers.
So Cobalion.
Aethos, Porthos, and Eris.
Right. Cobalion's going to be Porthos, not only in just his mannerisms, but he's just kind of bulky, just like Porthos. Virizion is the effeminate one, which is
I'm not sure. I haven't read your mom in a while.
okay. I'm not even sure that's what it is, but you can see that it not only is being more effeminate, but it also has the same swordsplay as that Musketeer.
Yeah.
And then the final one. No.
Yeah. I don't remember.
Cobalion's the leader, and it's also the same as the leader in the
Yeah.
Musketeer Trio.
There's a bulky one in the Musketeer Trio. It's the same one as Terrakion. Virizion is the feminine of the Musketeer Trio. We haven't read Dumont in a long time. That's the point here. We really need to read more, Stephen.
I read a lot, but it's all
It's really slow. And
it scrolls only left and right. It takes a minute to boot up.
He finally got it.
Anyway,
The other Musketeer, Keldeo, is also based off of the youngest Musketeer.
Musketeer added in another novel by Dumont. Again, we haven't read enough Dumont.
And you see that illusion based on Keldeo's tail. It has the same feathery plume, but it's seen as that Musketeer's hat. So that's kind of cool.
And there's an event in game where it's given its special ability in a some kind of ritual with the other 3 Musketeers. Yeah.
They basically meet up and show it. It's special.
Which they can't use anyway.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
And it's also the My Little Pony of Pokemon for your bronies here. So, look forward to that.
Don't mention bronies, he gives them powers. Knowledge makes them powerful.
So we also have the gym Pokemon. That's going to be
They're genies.
Landorus, Thundurus, and Tornadus.
They're based off storms.
They are, and they're pretty cool. You have Landorus there kind of as the mediator between the two. basically a Pokemon episode specifically for him. You get episode to see those guys battle it out. But Landorus handles all the harvest. He handles making sure that the harvest is good.
So he's the harvest fairy.
He's the reaper. He's the harvest reaper. That's why.
He's the harvest fairy from Harvest Moon.
You're uncomfortable now, aren't you? Yeah. I don't like Landorus. But in him trying to provide that bountiful harvest for people, Thundurus and Tornadus are constantly causing storms, ruining the crops, ruining the harvest, and basically making his job a lot more difficult.
Which is why there's a storm every time they appear. Oddly, they use Tornadus' storm is the same as Thundurus' storm, with Thundurus' cry. They were lazy.
Yeah, they got a little bit lazy. You have to chase the gens around the route. But after you have Tornadus and Thundurus in the game, you present them to the Abundance Shrine, which is how you find out about Landorus being the spirit there for having the bountiful harvest. And he's in an area where if you go there during summer, spring, you have all these crops there, but if you go there during winter or fall, all the crops are there. Yeah, hopefully.
What is this out of Bikini?
Big T. Number 000.
Or 94.
I like 000. It's like an agent. Triple O agent. Yes. So Victini has a lot of different illusions. Just number one, well, I don't know if you all knew this, but that's Kensuke Mori. That's one of his new favorite Pokemon. It's Victini. So if you want to get any good favorite with him, buy him a Victini. But anyways,
He has
he doesn't have it. You should steal his. He said, I heard that it got stolen.
You have this one again. This damage is in all the right places.
It has your but Victini has a lot of different illusions. Number one is the Victory Pokemon. Its ability Victory Star allows him to score all the speed. And of course he has a V in his ears, I guess, are there ears?
Yeah, there he is.
And he's also holding up a V. So you have all those illusions, and the legend behind Victini is that whoever is its trainer will always win in battle. That's just because of its ability to just literally provide practically pure energy to anything. And you see that in the Pokemon movie, Pokemon Reshiram and Victini. It just touches Ash's Pokemon and they become supercharged. So that's kind of a direct reference. And there have also been some illusions cast with Victini having something to do with nuclear energy. And it has to do more with its being created.
Being created isn't new.
It really is. It's
unfair.
the strongest. Is it the strongest part?
Yeah. It's a base 180.
Base 180, then Victini gets stabbed on.
Third strongest score of the day.
So, strong move. But it's called the nuclear energy analogy rests there because it's something super, super, super powerful, but it falls into the wrong hands if Victini was in the wrong hands. That would spell downfall for everyone because that person would just keep winning. So.
Not really, no. I think
That's all the legendaries. We can talk about random.
We can talk about Genesect and
Oh yeah.
no.
He was a fossil in Team Rocket.
Bug Fossil created by Bug Fossil brought back to life, then modified by either Team Rocket or Team Plasma, depending on who you ask, and given basically a death kit.
With the removal of hard drive, it changed the type of death kit.
Yeah. Missed the one. It's a dancer. It's actually a performer. There are a lot of musical Pokemon in this generation. They're pushing the sound style of combat with, well, of course they have the musicals. Then they added a bunch of new sound moves, round and a couple of others, right? And then a Pokemon that's based entirely around singing song and dance. So it is the Pokemon that was its release I'm using all my musicals.
Miolata's, the reason he was speaking of Miolata in the forum earlier is that Miolata, once it uses a special signature move, Ancient Song, it switches forms. So it starts off as a normal psychic type, and then it switches forms to a normal fighting type.
Yeah.
And the fighting type, of course, has better physical attacks, and the psychic type has better special attacks. But it can switch between those forms at will during battle as long as it uses the Ancient Song.
It dies from close combat.
Pretty much. It's a good one of those things.
Does anybody? Yeah. Do you have any questions?
You said you can talk
about other Pokemon. You should talk about Pikachu.
So Pikachu,
It's an electric rat.
it is, and it was not originally supposed to be Ash's first Pokemon. That was supposed to go to Clefairy. But they changed, because in the manga, the hero that's in the manga has Clefairy as his first Pokemon. But they changed it.
Depending on which manga. Pokemon Special.
Not special. It's,
Hollywood.
Yeah, Poliwhirl and Bulbasaur were his first two.
Or I guess just Sora. I think he called it just
It's
Sora.
Sar, yeah.
But then they changed it at the last second just so fans would be more familiar with the anime. I think it would have been interesting if Ash had a fairy. But let's see, at the beginning of each generation, something happens to Pikachu that nerfs his power. Like at the beginning of Black and White Best Wishes, he was either
I think it's just
Zekrom or his lightning went up to Zekrom and it basically reset it. It was like a hard reset. Or like I hit the little button on the back of my Pokédex and it resets it. Because Pikachu
Trains it
lost
over
all
and the stats reset from
his
55.
mojo.
yeah. I think Ash is just a terrible trainer. I think that's why Pikachu keeps losing. Because it should be level 100 by now.
He loves it and it loves him, and he wants to get hit by more Soul Saves.
Also, he had the Thunderstone with him that was given to him by Nintendo Search for a long time. He had a second chance to evolve that. And then Team Rocket stole Thunderstone from him, knowing that he wasn't going to use it on Pikachu. Pikachu just kept saying that he didn't want to evolve. And although in the game when you use a stone on a Pokemon, it immediately evolves in the anime, there were several instances of Pokemon like Clefairy holding on to Moonstones and carrying them around and not being affected by the radiation. Or,
The anime Pokemon have their own will.
yeah.
In the game, Pokemon are weapons.
You evolved, bitch. Except for Yellow. Yellow, you couldn't evolve the Pikachu.
You could, you had to trade it.
You had to trade it, but that wasn't in Yellow anymore.
Well, that's the thing. They just
Yeah.
they were trying to push it to be more like the anime and Pokemon Special at the same time. That's why it's Special Pikachu Edition. It's special. Pokemon. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Game Boy Colors weren't meant to do voices. They broke the bank on that one. But Yellow's a really good game. It is the solid third card game. Gotta love it.
Fourth card.
Yellow was our earliest.
It's third, let's be honest. Because red and green were exactly the same. Blue is a better version of red. For us, it's the third game because our red and blue are based off the original Japanese blue, which is completely different from red and green. Red and green were bad games.
They had the craziest sprites. Please go look up sprites from Green.
Some of those sprites were really good.
Hilarious.
They're so wackily.
The Mew was terrible.
Coughing was at least correct in red and green.
See, when they made blue, they based red and blue off of our Japanese blue, and that's why all the sprites in ours look the same as red and green. And then yellow is our third card. Yes, it is the fourth game in first gen, but green was never released here, so it doesn't really count. Those sprites. Also, the final part of the secret dungeon is completely different in red and green. It's like scary different. Yes, really good.
Only 2 badges. What a move. Real trainers have 7.
It's
Because
now,
the 8th isn't here
let's
yet.
see, 201. So I'm going to say you guys have 10 more minutes to finish out your registration for the tournament. It's $5 for Pokemon.
Oh yeah, I need to pull out my 4th.
Yeah, we give them 10 minutes. Yeah.
There's and they had plush